Hello, it's Drew Edwards here from EliteClientAttraction.com and MaverickMarketerUnleashed.com, and welcome to another episode of the Maverick Marketer Unleashed podcast. Me and Terry have just spent sort of the last 2 days with our mastermind group, where we get some of our best clients in the room and really sort of, I guess, help them iron out some of their biggest business challenges. And one thing that came up from a lot of people was the subject of websites and what really makes a good website. And so what we're doing in this episode, this podcast, is we're going to be looking at 5 of the biggest mistakes that coaches, trainers, consultants and speakers make with the website. So hopefully it will help you avoid making them in the future. Before we begin, I just want to say, Terry, how are you today?
Oh, I thought you were never going to ask, Drew. I thought you'd forgotten that I was here. Yeah, I'm very good indeed. Thank you, Drew. Very good indeed.
Good stuff. Remember, if you enjoy the show, make sure you subscribe via iTunes. For show notes, podcast updates and additional resources, make sure you head over to MaverickMarketerUnleashed.com. That's MaverickMarketerUnleashed.com. So, what are the 5 biggest mistakes that we see coaches, trainers, consultants and speakers make with the website? So mistake number 1 that you might be making right now is trusting your web designer. So what you see happen with a lot of people in this market is that when people start a business nowadays anyway, one of the first things they sort of think about doing is, I need a website. I need to have some sort of web presence there, which is not wrong by any means, but what they go out and do is they hire a web designer. Sometimes they know a family friend who does it sort of on a cheap or for free. Sometimes they pay money for this website, and they sort of let the web designer take over. They let the web designer choose what the website looks like, choose what the website does. They take all the web designer's advice, which again, I can understand why you would do that. I mean, they design websites for a living, so you might make the mistake of thinking they know what makes a good website. Now, again, the key thing to remember is, if you look at what a web designer does, they are a designer. They are there to build your website. What they are not is they're not a marketeer. They know how to build a website, know how to make it do all the things you want it to do. What they don't know is what makes an effective website in terms of marketing, lead generation and sales. And I'm not necessarily talking about all web designers. I'm sure there are some out there who know what it takes to generate leads on your website, but the vast majority don't. And so you trusting them is a big mistake, because they're going to end up building you something that may perhaps looks good on the surface, but doesn't generate you leads, doesn't make you sales, and that obviously can end up being really expensive. You're going to build a website. The main purpose of your website should be as a sales tool, as a marketing tool. So you need to be clear on what your website needs to do. You need to be the one to tell your web designer, this is what I want it to do, this is what I want it to look like, here, go and build it, rather than you taking their advice. You need to be leading them in the process of website building. Terry, I mean, does that make sense?
Yeah, and to make it clear, we've got nothing against web designers, and they're doing the job. They're designing the website. Our role, working with coaches, trainers, and consultants, is to really help them generate more leads and increase their revenue. So this is all about what you should be doing on your website that will ensure that you generate more leads and increase your revenue. By the way, web designers will push back at this and say, no, it's got to look right, and it's got to be creative, and it's got to have this and that. And 95% of the time, it's just a BS. I think one of the best examples to look at, if you look at the likes of, imagine if your local web designer had the opportunity to design Google's website, which is one of the best web-performing websites in the world. If you think about Google, nothing fancy about Google. They don't go for this creativity. It just does the job. But imagine if your local web designer had worked on the Google website and what it would look like, and the kind of language they'd be using about creativity and what I once heard, pushing the envelope of creativity and blue sky thinking, which I don't understand those two terms, but on many occasions web designers are using it. So Drew's absolutely right. Don't put all your trust in the web designer, and note that they are web designers and they're not marketeers. And the more you know about this, I'm going to get this clear, the more you know about this, the better the conversation you can have with your web designer, rather than the web designer saying, no, I'm a web designer, I know exactly what needs to be done here. And it's really important that you understand the concepts and what your website should be doing, rather than just kind of going along with your web designer. Cheers, Drew.
Great stuff. So yeah, mistake number 1 is trusting your web designer. Mistake number 2 that you might be making with your website right now is talking too much about yourself. Now, again, we've sort of said many times before, all your potential clients really care about are themselves, their problems, and how to fix them. But a mistake that you can make with your website is, rather than talking about their problems and how you can solve them, you end up talking about yourself too much. You end up talking about how long you've been in business. You end up focusing your website on your logo, your company colors, your background, your mission statement. Okay, you talk too much about yourself. Now, the problem with that is that that may all become important later on down the line, but at this stage, your clients don't really care. Your potential clients don't really care about that. All they want to know is, how can I help? How can I solve the problem that I'm having right now? So again, mistake number 2 is talking too much about yourself on your website. Terry, anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, if you go to most websites, as you rightly said, it would say, I'm a coach, trainer, consultant. I've been in business for 15 years. I'm married with 3 kids. I live in this particular part of the town. This is what I do. We really care about you. Oh, this is what my core values are. That isn't going to help your client in any way whatsoever. And there's a theory that when a client comes to your website, you've got about 8 seconds before they go, never to return. And it's a bit like if you went to a dinner party and you met somebody who wanted to do nothing but talk about themselves. You'd kind of glaze over and think, what do I need to do to get away from this situation? Well, exactly the same applies to your website. If you're just talking about yourself and how great you are and how successful you are and what you do, the visitor to your website is thinking, I need to get away from it as quickly as possible and find a coach, trainer, consultant that can solve my problem. So one of the key things you want to be doing is, rather than talking about yourself and using the words like we, us, our team, here's a word to use as frequently as possible in your copy in your website. You, Y-O-U. So that way, that forces you to be talking directly to the reader rather than talking about yourself. Cheers, mate.
Good stuff. So mistake number 2 is talking about too much about yourself. Mistake number 3, and again this is sort of linked with mistake number 2, is not being clear about who your website is for. So as I said previously, all your potential clients really care about are themselves, their problems, and how to fix them. Okay, Terry mentioned then that you've got about 8 seconds before your potential client makes a decision about whether they want to leave your website or not. So we've got 8 seconds to convince them to stay. And the way that you do that is by giving them a big promise right up front that they see, that tells them this is how they can solve their problem. So it's very clear. The first thing is they need to make it very clear what problem you solve, so it's very clear exactly who the website is for. They need to know that your website is for people who have the problem that they are facing. Terry, anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, that's a really good point. That's because sometimes we look at, because we critique websites all the time, as Drew said. Over the past 2 days, we've been doing that with our elite clients. So we're critiquing websites all the time, and a lot of time you can look at a website, you can think, I don't actually know precisely what you do and who you do it for, and that's because they haven't been clear in the copy exactly who they want to attract. But equally important, who do you want to repel? Who is it that you don't really want to work for? Now, one of the ways you can repel people by making it clear this website is for, or I work with the owners and directors of small businesses in the north of England, as an example. So you're making it absolutely clear who you work for, and if you're not a small business owner in the north of England, you think this isn't for me, they're going to go. Well, that's exactly what you want. And you want those people that you're targeting to stay on their website. So absolutely, Drew, you put that really well.
Great stuff. And mistake number 4 is not having a clear purpose for each page on your website. So what I mean by that is sort of a basic marketing principle is that every email, every sales letter, every page on your website, every telephone call should have a very clear purpose, a very clear call to action, a very clear next step that you want the potential client to make. When you look at the websites of most coaches, trainers, consultants, and speakers, they don't have this. They they either don't have any sort of clear next step, or they have more than one, so it gets confusing for the client. So what you want to do with your website is having a clear next step, whether that be to pick up the phone and call you, whether that be to buy from you if it's a sales type website, whether that be to sort of give you the name and the email and become a lead. There needs to be, each page on your website needs to have one very clear call to action, one very clear purpose. Is there anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, and just to add to that is that so many coaches, career consultants on their let's say the home page, they'll have like their LinkedIn, the social media buttons there as well. And again, what you're doing is you're driving them away from your website to be it Facebook, Twitter, or LinkedIn, or whatever. And that's a sign of not having enough clarity in what your website's for. And as Drew said, there should only be one call to action. There should be only one thing that the potential client can do on that website, be it to give you your details, to give you a call, or whatever. But the moment you have more than one message on there, one what we call call to action, you're then diluting that call to action. So that's really important and often overlooked by coaches, trainers, and consultants.
Great stuff, thank you. And the fifth and final mistake we're going to be looking at today is not driving enough traffic. Again, so even if you're not making the 4 mistakes that we spoke about previously, if no one sees your website, then it's not going to generate any leads, not going to make you any sales. It serves no real purpose. When me or anyone else talks about driving traffic in terms of when it comes to online marketing or online marketing, what we're really talking about is driving more of your ideal clients or ideal potential clients to your website. So again, a mistake that people make is that they may have the perfect looking website. It may not do any of the things that we spoke about. So they may have not trusted the web designer. They got it designed perfectly. They don't talk about themselves, and they talk about their clients' problems instead. It's very clear about who the website is for, and they give a big promise. Each page has got a clear purpose. If no one sees that, then it's not going to do anything. It's not going to generate you leads. It's not going to make you any sales. So one of the big mistakes that we see people make is they don't actually actively drive traffic to the website. They don't market their business they don't market their website in order to drive traffic there. So one thing you want to make sure you're doing is driving traffic to your website. Is there anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, just share. I guess it's a confession that when I first entered the world of coaching, I foolishly thought that I'd just simply build my website, put it out there, and I would be swamped with business. Guess what? That isn't true. But there is this, build it and they will come. There is no truth in that whatsoever. If they've never heard of you, they're never going to find you. You're obscure. They're not going to engage you. So it's really important. It comes back to this marketing that we talked about earlier. That you are driving people to your website, and you're giving them a reason to go to your website. Because unless you're driving people to your website, nobody's going to be visiting your website. And please, I guess what I'm saying here, don't make the mistake that I made in building this website and thinking, yeah, I built it and they will come running to me with their credit cards in their hands, because it doesn't happen. It really doesn't happen. You've got to actively drive them to your website. Some good stuff that you shared with us today, Drew. Thanks for that.
Good stuff again. Thanks for joining us.
Pleasure, my pleasure.
If you've enjoyed the show, make sure you remember to subscribe via iTunes and leave a review. And again, if you know anyone else who can benefit from this show, make sure you share it with them. Make sure you spread the word. Again, this is something that we do for free. If you want us to keep doing it, then we want to get it out to as many people as possible. For show notes, additional resources, and podcast updates, head over to maverickmarketerunleashed.com. That's maverickmarketerunleashed.com. I will speak with you again very soon. Until then, take care, take action, and be relentless.
Thanks, Drew.